Scale, exit, repeat. Coaster. That's what we're talking about today with our host, Michael Gilmore, who comes to us from Australia. You can join us every Thursday here at 5 o'clock Eastern as we talk about this. The entrepreneur's roller coaster, a big one because it really is a roller coaster from day to day. Michael, welcome to the show.
It's so good to be here, Colin, once again on The Complete Entrepreneur. It's one of those times where we get together and discuss what it means to live life as an entrepreneur. And Colin, it's my favorite time of week. It really is. I don't know about you, but there's just so many things happen during the week where it goes up and down as you're running your business. But I find The Complete Entrepreneur is a bit of calm water for an hour. Do you know what I mean by that, Colin?
Yes, I do, Michael. And I don't think I really like this topic. I'll be quite frank. I hate it because I'm going through something today. And, it just seems like an entrepreneur, it just never ends. High interest rates, the challenges of tariffs and e-commerce and everything. It really is horrible. And at the same time, it's great. You get these highs and you get these lows. And I seem to be going through that on a day-to-day basis. Today, I just learned like an hour ago that the company that I'm trying to sell, the broker decided to not represent us because they said that we're not financially feasible to be sold in the current structure unless we break it up and chop it into pieces. And I don't want to do that because that's going to cause a much lower valuation versus a strategic valuation. And it just happened an hour ago. And so obviously I'm a little bit pissed off right now. I was even thinking about canceling the show. I'm like, oh my gosh, whatever. But that's what that's what we are here. We're two raw and real people, Michael and I, and we share it all and we hope people learn from it. And we love to hear from other people as well in the audience who can share about with us their roller coaster life, because it's not easy. It really is not easy being an entrepreneur, I tell you.
Yeah, it is tough, Colin. Yeah, it really is. And even down here in Australia, let me tell you, love an entrepreneur. If you're thinking it's going to be easier, say in a country like this, not a chance. And the highs and lows that I've experienced in the past few weeks have been, how can I put it, phenomenal. Yeah, because one day you really do. You feel like you're on top of the world. And the next day, you've just been smashed. And you think, come on, it's got to get easier. And you look at the trend line, and if you're lucky, the trend line is going upwards, if you're lucky. But sometimes you look at it, oh no, it's starting to go downwards. And you've got to come from the innermost part of your being. You're going to knuckle down and you got to say, okay, what am I going to do to turn this around? And that just takes grit and determination. It really does. And the entrepreneur is a person that has to dig in deep time and time again. And it's really interesting. Here in Australia, as an example, the government released its budget just recently. And the whole goal of the budget is basically, if I was to paraphrase it, is to make the tax the same if someone runs a business and earns $100,000 a year as who gets a paycheck for $100,000 a year, and to equalize that. At the time, there was ways of a business owner to be able to get some tax breaks and stuff like that. So getting rid of all of those, they say it needs to be the same. And I'm just scratching my head and I'm going, you got to be kidding me. Who takes the risk? Seriously? Who takes the risk? The person who went along, put their house on the line and put all their money in and everything like that, or the person who takes a wage, and that's it. The person who takes all the risk who gets. So it's like one of those moments of, you've got to be kidding me. So they're messing with capital gains tax, they're messing with the whole taxation system, and really look at punishing entrepreneurs. So Colin, I'm watching a show on entrepreneurship in Australia the other day, and this really prominent entrepreneur in Australia, he was being interviewed, and he goes, okay, the interviewer says, what do you recommend for any new young up and coming entrepreneurs? And he goes, leave. And I felt my heart just sink. It was like one of those low moments.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and the guy goes, leave. You've got to leave. If you don't leave, you're going to get banned.
Thomas, where do you go?
It's not like there's a lot of, but it's one of those long moments. You think, oh, come on. And that's why there's highs and lows. And then I look at my numbers in my business. My numbers are doing really well. And it's keep on going up and that sort of stuff, which has been really nice. So I then have the high.
Yeah.
And then you crash down again. And it's just like, then you look at something else and you go, oh, geez, another problem we're going to deal with. And then you go down, then you have another high, and then you go down, then you have another high, then you go down. And you're porpoising the whole time. And it's hard. People have said to me, and it's like, I'm not trying to put tickets on myself, make myself look better, but they said, there's one thing we know about you. You're just so level. And I said, yeah, you don't know what goes on the inside. What I express on the outside is different to what goes on the inside. Trust me.
But I do think that, Michael, because we've done this for 30 years each, and we're the same age. So because we've done this, I think you might be younger than me. I can't remember, but whatever.
I'm a bit older than you, I think.
You are older, whatever. You have younger spirit.
A few years. So you gotta respect
but we've
your
been
elders.
doing this for 30 years. I think that you get these shocks and you seem to absorb them a little better. The ups and the downs, by the way. And I think that's healthy. I think when you experience the emotional high, it's great. But when you experience the emotional low, it's horrible. And I do think, even though I got hit pretty hard an hour ago, I feel like it'll be okay. We'll figure it out. You know what I'm saying? It's never usually as bad as you really think it is when it happens. But it does piss you off.
Oh, it really does. But I said to, and that's my entire team that I'm resigning. A few months ago, I said I'm resigning as the chief executive officer of my company. And you could hear the silence. I said, yeah, but I've reapplied. I've been accepted to the new role of chief problem solver because that's all I do. Everyone had a bit of a laugh about that.
Yeah.
But it's true. That's what we do. That's who we are.
So how do you mitigate the roller coaster, though, Michael? I mean, emotionally, you can deal with it, but there's got to be ways where, there's got to be something that you can do to mitigate risk. I think one of the things that as a company does begin to grow, you do begin to think about mitigating risk. You can't protect against. Let me give you an example. Let's just say you're in the shipping industry and you buy oil futures in the future to mitigate the potential loss if the oil prices go up. That's an example of mitigating risk, right? So I wonder if
you're hedging your bet. You're hedging your bet.
Hedging your bet, yeah. So hedging your bet. So I wonder if there's things you can do in your life. So like through the business itself, and then there's a personal way you deal with the roller coaster, the shocks that you go through. But I wonder if there's ways that you can deal with it in your personal life.
Yeah, look, I personally think you cannot mitigate against everything. You can help try to smooth some of the highs and lows, but you can't. As entrepreneurs, they're driving the business forward. Your job is to weather the storm for everyone else. That's your job. You've signed up for it. That's all there is to it. Face it. Now, the second thing is, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that personally, into relationships and all that sort of stuff? And how do you deal with that from a business perspective? From a business perspective, you can do things such as what you're talking about, Colin. You can hedge and all that sort of stuff. For instance, we only bring back to Australian currency because we get paid in US currency. We get, from our clients, only bring back to Australia the bare minimum amount to keep operations going. Yeah, so we leave everything in US dollars.
So there are some business things you can do to mitigate or to hedge your bets.
Yeah.
To reduce the ups and downs of currency fluctuations or those type of things. But that's not really what we're talking about today, is it, right? It's about the emotional aspect.
Roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I highly recommend to all entrepreneurs is find somebody, not anybody, find somebody you can actually share openly with the struggles and strains of what it means to run your business. You've got to have a pressure relief valve. Not so you can dump on them, is so you can actually sit down with them and be open and frank. It's a bit like when you go to your doctor. You get some people, they try to disguise when they're feeling sick or whatever it is. They say, oh, no, I'm fine, I'm okay. And the doctor must scratch their head and think, why don't you just be honest for a start and open and frank, because why are you here? It's almost like that. That you need that person where you can be completely open.
It's not always your spouse, is it?
No, it's not.
Or your significant
It's
other.
not always just the problem with your significant other is that, and don't get me wrong, I share a lot with my wife. She's definitely been on the journey with me, that's for sure. But the problem with it is they have no ability to bring any sort of change to the situation. So you end up, and my wife said this to me one day, I hear all these problems you're wrestling with, but I need to hear the outcomes as well and how you resolved it. Because the moment my brain is still in, we just got problems and problems. I didn't even realize I was doing it, but I was, treating her as a dumping ground. And I was like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened today. Oh my gosh. Oh, like, but, and I would say that each day, but I wouldn't say, you know what? Let me tell you some really great news. And I wasn't telling her the good news. I was only telling her the bad news, because the good news is, okay, we've got that, move on. Because I'm the chief problem solver. What I want to do is focus on the bad news. And that's just who I am. And I realized that, and she pointed out to me, and I changed my communication with her a lot. That I had to tell her the good news, but I had to be very careful how much I told her and when I told her different things. Because she's going to bear it too, remember. Your significant other, and that's a hard burden. Because one of the challenges is, in the case of my wife anyway, is she's linked to me, but she has no control. So she's on the roller coaster, but she can't put the brake on and she can't go along and slow things down or whatever. She's just like hanging on for dear life and trusting that I know what I'm doing. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, so she thinks the track isn't broken in front of us, so that's nice. But it's a really tough thing for them to actually go through this. Also, your kids, particularly as they get older, I've seen some entrepreneurs, they share really openly with their kids. You have to be very careful about that. It's only now where I have one of my daughters, she's my executive assistant, and she knows what happens 100% what's going on in the business, what I'm going through, and all that sort of stuff. And she's 27 years old now. But when they're 18 or 15 or something like that, there's not a chance. You got to be really careful, because you can end up burdening them with problems they cannot deal with. Number one, they're not their problems, but they'll end up just worrying about you with you because they love you, and they'll worry themselves to an early grave, even as kids, or they'll respond. It'll damage the relationship. You don't want to do that. You have to be really careful, particularly with most entrepreneurs nowadays, Colin. They work from home, and so their family gets to see quite often the highs and lows, because you're in your study or you're wherever you do your work and everything like that. And they can see it, and they're experiencing the waves of emotional anxiety or emotional joy and all that sort of thing. They're feeling those waves. And you got to really be careful to contain those. And that's hard. So you need that pressure valve release, which is outside of, say, your family or and that sort of stuff. And you need that person. You need to be able to just be really open and honest. If you don't, you're going to blow yourself up. The other thing I've done, Colin, to mitigate some of the stresses, and it definitely is a physical stress, is I've done a number of things. Number one is the weekends. In what I do, I actually do no work on the weekends unless I absolutely have to. My wife knows I got a big disaster on or something like that if I'm working across the weekend at all. But I do no work in the weekend, particularly Sundays. Sundays is our day for my wife and I. That's it. And there's no discussion of business and that sort of stuff unless she brings it up. If she brings it up, it's okay, but I won't bring it up. Yeah. The other thing I do is I periodically go away just to myself for a couple of nights to get my head, because in the cut and thrust of the daily business and all those highs and lows and everything like that, it's really hard to be able to be focused on the bigger picture. and I have to go away. So I go away to a particular spot, and there's a nice hotel overlooks a golf course and everything. It's a really good place. And I sit there and I just dump all of my stress. First thing I do is I dump all of my stresses and all of my worries and all of my concerns into a Word doc. Sit there with my computer and I just type away. That sometimes takes the first day. It takes a long time. And I'm really brutally honest with myself. No one will ever read that document. If they did, they'd be horrified, by the way, probably. But I showed no one that document. And I find that once I've emptied myself of all my stresses and all my strains and things like that, then I got my mind in a position where I can begin to think about what's the next steps in the business. And I spend the next day to day and a half or something like that, because I go away for 2 nights, day and a half, of just thinking and thinking about what are the next steps, what are we going to do, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, do all this sort of analysis and everything. And I'll quite often take a book with me and I'll just read a book for a few hours as well during that time. And I'll look at, it could have been a book I've already read, and so I read continuously, particularly in entrepreneurship. By the way, if you haven't bought Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, go and buy it. Colin's book. It's awesome. That's a book you end up coming back to time and time again to read. And so you take it away and you read, and I read and I plan and I come back and sorry, I have a list of action items at the end of the time. And sometimes even on the car driving back home, I'll be making calls, actioning things. I'll take one action after another as I've made decisions. And that really begins to level me out. So you asked, like, how do you manage the emotional sort of roller coaster? There's two things I do. I don't work on the weekends unless I possibly help it. And I go away to get my head right, because sometimes it just gets a bit too much. In fact, my wife says to me, you just need to go away. You're becoming unbearable to live with. You just need to go away for a couple of days. She means it facetiously, obviously. But you need to go away, get your head right, and then come back. Yeah. So there's a couple of things I do, Colin. I would love to hear some of the people in the audience, though. I'd love to have you up on the stage. What do you do to manage this roller coaster? It's a tough thing. It really is tough for entrepreneurs. So if you're in the audience, stick your hand up. We'd love to have you up on stage. What do we call them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you talked about, this idea of going into sort of a private mode, is cool. I also think going into team mode with your team and doing a strategic planning session
I
and
think that's
acknowledging.
important
So
too.
here's the thing. Here's the thing about challenges and the roller coaster, right? Is that it could be really bad and scary and everything's going on. But if you do nothing, it just gets worse. We all agree on that, right? But if you actually try to work on the problem and you put your team together and you do a 2-day strategic planning or a 1-day strategic planning or whatever it is,
Yep.
or even if it's not your team, it's like you said earlier, trusted advisors. I belong to a group called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and we often meet once a month to help each other out with our businesses, our personal life, our businesses, et cetera. But I think that's a way of, like, when you feel like you're at least doing something mentally, it's better than doing nothing or just curling up in a ball in your bed and this stuff, because that's not going to make you feel better. But when you're fighting the fight, fighting the battle, and you're actually going out there and making strategic decisions and making moves to reduce expenses or do whatever it takes to survive, then that actually makes a difference. I think it actually psychologically, you feel at least you're making progress. And even if you do fail, at least you've given it your all. Because you know what? The roller coaster could lead to it falling apart. And sometimes that happens, but at least you gave it your all and you put in everything you thought you could to make this business successful, this startup successful. I think that's action is, and strategy and support are probably 3 of the things you can do to help you with those lows. Now, the highs, can we talk about the high for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Can we talk about the high? Because the high could be just as dangerous as the lows. I saw
No,
a company.
disagree. I disagree.
All right. I saw a company. I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how. Okay. Just give me a second here. A company I invested in a few $100,000 into this company. It was a jewelry company. And it was set up by four entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs who were killing it. Went to $12 million in revenue. And my gosh, did they become arrogant. And their high was a high. And they thought they ruled the world. And when I said, guys, the chickens are going to come home to roost, I saw that line in what was that, Wolf of Wall Street, from the father telling that to the son, if you remember the correct.
Yeah.
Chickens are going to come home to roost. And you know what? The company ended up filing into bankruptcy eventually. But the highs destroyed these people. When they were at that, they literally booked that room in Vegas that was in the movie. These guys were out of control. They acted like they were rock stars or something like that. So sometimes when you get the success, arrogance can be damaging to the people around you. And that high can be very dangerous if you don't recognize that there was luck that you got there, first of all. And second, that you're there because certain circumstances led you there, but those same or similar forces could lead you down. And you need to protect yourself at that point, sometimes by exiting your company. That's the best way to do it sometimes. When things are great, you exit. Start, scale, exit, repeat, not start, scale, exit, keep. And there are times, though, when you have to be cognizant of that. And I'm involved right now with 20 companies in an incubator, and I see it happen over and over again. The ones that start getting a little bit success and they're like, oh my God, then they become so arrogant. They think their valuations are worth 10 times what they're actually worth. And then they don't get the funding or whatever it is. And it ends up being their demise. The top of the roller coaster ends up being their demise. And I think there's a counter argument here, Michael. You said you disagree, but I'm telling you, because you've lived a different life, your experiences are different than others' experiences. When they hit the high, it's corrupted them. Essentially, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Absolute success corrupts absolutely. When you are successful, these entrepreneurs, I've seen these entrepreneurs, and maybe I might be guilty of this a little bit too, is that beating their chest, saying, look at me, I'm so successful, blah, blah, blah. And then it all falls apart. And what I'm saying is that when the success happens, we need to measure that success too. We need to think about, okay, we got a little lucky, guys. Okay. Let's take some money off the table. Let's raise some money. Let's do whatever we can to whatever, but don't be arrogant thinking that one company that I'm working on right now, my incubator, hit $40 million in sales. And we had offers coming in at $20, $30 million to sell the company. Now the company can't sell for $3, $4 million, maybe $5 million, maybe 6. I don't know. We'll see. The point is, when things go really well, you have to also check your ego at the door.
Colin, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, in the highs, I did look at that side, which is in the highs when things are going really well. It's exhilarating. But
feels great, doesn't it? It feels freaking amazing.
It feels great, but remain humble. Remember your beginnings. Remember where you came from. Look around you. When things are going really well, the first thing you should think about is how you can bless your team. That's the first thing that should go to your mind. If it doesn't, then you've actually got an ego problem. Think about how you can bless those who really helped you get to where you are and how you can give them something. Not because you have to or got a contract or something like that, but because it's the right thing to do. And that helps you check your ego. It's a bit like when I brought out my business partner a couple of years ago. We've been working together for 17 years and everything like that. And he was a good guy, but a very unusual guy, put it that way. But when we created this contract, he tried to dot every I and cross every T for the sale. It was actually quite a nightmare trying to get it through and everything, because he thought I was going to screw him in some way. So when it came to paying him out, There was an earn-out as well attached to it. I just looked at the top number each quarter and I just paid him the top number every time, even though contractually I didn't have to. And I actually said to him, we would catch up for lunch. In fact, it was even obligated in the contract that we catch up on a regular basis for lunch. That's how detailed he got. He was a very detailed guy. And yeah, so I ended up reliving it all. I said to him, I said, okay, you may have noticed I'm paying the top number, even though I don't have to pay the top number. He said, yeah, I was wondering that. I said, you've now learned who I really am. I said, there's two things. There's the spirit of the agreement, and then there's the letter of the agreement. I want to bless you and make sure that you go away being blessed. And that's the thing about an entrepreneur is sometimes they take the attitude of, I do this a lot when I'm negotiating with people. I'll negotiate really hard. If you're negotiating with me, I'll be tough. I'll really be tough. And after it all comes to the end, I'll then give it back. Not because I have to, because I choose to. And the reason why I do that is because I'm a firm believer also in all the highs and lows we're talking about here, Colin, is you've got to, the most important thing you have in your business life is not how much money you have in your bank account. The most important thing you have is your relationships. And those relationships, those business relationships, personal relationships, whatever they are, they're the things that will actually begin to allow you to launch your next business. They'll allow you to go ahead and have a more level mindset. Now I get together with my business partner and we have lunch together, not because I have to, it's because I want to. I enjoy his company. It's quite a different relationship when you're not in a partnership as well. And I really listen to him and some of his advice he may have and things like that. Yeah, it's an interesting that when you're in the highs, Colin, and you're exactly right. Some people, it just goes to their head and they spend, and before they do it, they're bankrupt. I know a guy that he was on top of the world.
I've seen it happen multiple times.
2 years later, he was bankrupt. He had everything. He was bankrupt.
But you wonder, could you make different decisions at the time that you're at that high to prepare yourself for the eventual roller coaster downward? You know what I'm saying? Could your friend have made a different decision at that time?
Of course they could have. Of course they could have. And absolutely could make a different decision. When you're at the high, what is it? The story of Joseph out of the Bible was like 7 years of plenty. So you put away in the 7 years of plenty for the 7 years of famine. Yeah. And I'm also a firm believer that when things are going really well in your business, stack up the cash. Yeah, just keep some of
Don't
that
keep
cash.
gambling, you're saying? Don't keep rolling the dice and get it growing bigger and bigger and bigger?
Don't keep rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Don't keep rolling the dice. Take some of the cash off the table, go along and just build your cash reserves
Well,
up.
I don't know. There's a lot of circumstances which define that, right? Like market conditions, et cetera. I'm a big believer of start, scale, exit. So that's when you take some cash off the table. But I'm not necessarily a big believer of don't lean into it when you're growing. You want to lean into it when you're growing, right?
Yeah, but there's leaning into it that there's going where angels fear to tread. Yeah, I think, yeah, and leaning into it is a good thing, and you should do whatever you can to lean into it, particularly when it's really starting to go well. You lean into it and work hard and everything like that to accelerate the growth further. But don't spend every dollar you've got. Like I know, for instance, I love playing computer games, strategy games in particular. I know that if my enemy that I'm playing against allows me to put away about 10% of my resources each turn in the game, and they don't continually force me to spend everything I've got, then I know I've won the game. Soon as that happens, soon as they don't pressure me to the extent I can just put away 10% away, then I've won the game. And I have played games since the 80s. And it's the same every single time. I seem to put 10% away. Not all of it, because I want to push with the 90%. But the 10%, I put it away. So at the critical moment, I've got the cash reserves to suddenly go, dump it on the table and secure that awesome new staff member, to buy that business, to go and launch this new product. I've got the reserves to do that. If you're spending every single dollar you've got all the time, trust me, you're going to be on a roller coaster, right? But it's a roller coaster that hasn't flattened you out. One of the things you asked about was in the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. One of the things that can flatten it out a bit is knowing you've got $1 million in the bank. If you're a small business, if you've got $1 million in the bank, it's flattened out.
Plus the roller coaster of like start, scale, exit, repeat versus start, scale, keep. Like, for instance, when I first sold my first company, I bought a pinball machine. That's so funny because I'm actually looking at stock now.
You've got to reward yourself too.
Yeah, I know you have to reward yourself. And I'm joking a little bit here, but I bought my first house. And then I sold my second company. I maxed out my 529 plans for my kids so they would have enough money for college. And there's something that gives you a lot of comfort knowing that what you did with your exits are going to take care of yourself, your family, and you're really pretty much setting your stage to be independently wealthier or whatever you call it as you take things off the table. But if you're all thinking that this is some rich guy sitting on stage talking about this blah, 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 you're wrong.
You're wrong.
When I was 29 years old, I had a publicly traded company and I was one of those big whiz kids in Canada. And it went to over $1 billion. And after the dot-com crash hit, the company ended up filing for bankruptcy protection. The shares that I owned were worth $19 a share, ended up selling at 6 cents a share. And I lost 98% of my wealth at the time. I had sold another company before this company, which was the money we used to launch the next company, which thankfully 7 years later, we took public and sold to a Fortune 500 company. I've done many different companies after that and done very well. But talk about a roller coaster. I was on national television where they would say, here's a guy who was rags to riches. Literally, you can't go through those kind of extremes, going from being worth zero, literally nothing, living homeless at one time, to building a $120, $130 million wealth, to going back down to a few million, to going back up to whatever I'm at now, pretty much the same. But the point is that those extremes occur. And when I lost that 120 million, 130 million when I was 29 years old, and it was publicly traded stock and all that stuff. So it was real money. And when I lost that money, I looked internally and said to myself, you know what do I love the most? And I love technology and I love the way it changes the world and it can help people. So we launched a new technology company and we did take that company public 6 years later, like I mentioned. And sometimes you got to look internally and say, why am I even doing any of this? It's not about the money. It's about what I love to do. And focus on what you love to do and channel that into making money. I'm not kind of artist that I believe all entrepreneurs are more artists than operators for the most part. There's a few exceptions, but I believe that's the case. And I'm not the kind of entrepreneur who says, or artist who says, I am who I am and nobody buys my stuff. I don't care. No, biggest validation in our life when we build something, design something, create something, draw something, sing something, whatever it is, that people actually pay money for it because that means it's valuable. And so I'm an artist who likes to sell his stuff. And that's why I do liveatsea.com. That's why I write for Entrepreneur Magazine. That's why I write for Forbes. That's why I write at startup.club. That's why I do what I do. Thank you for those hearts, sir. But I appreciate all the audience reactions to this diatribe. But that being said, I know we have a short show today, Michael, because so we got 2 minutes left. But any last thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, I was talking to a guy the other day, was a brand manager who manages brands and everything. I can't even remember why I was talking to him. And he asked an interesting question. He said, "Why do you do what you do?" And a bit like you, Colin, I said to him, "For the joy of it. I love what I do. I love dealing with the other entrepreneurs. I love my business. I love having friends from all around the world. It's for the joy of it. It's
It's funny you use those
nothing."
terms because in the book I used that in chapter 2, I think it was, but that you have to love what you do or you won't get through the roller coaster. Literally, that's in the book.
What? You have to love what you do. And it's really important, but it's for the joy of it. And sure, there's highs and there's lows and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, it's the reason why I've always been an entrepreneur is just for the joy, for the sheer joy, that the
What do you say,
magic.
motherfucker? All time you speak. Stop, little minute. Take a rest.
Because he had a 10% karma rating. So it was funny how he came on stage and did that. We're a live show here if you're listening to the podcast. We got another guy. Okay, hold on. Don't worry about it. We're going to close the audience down right now. But go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing is it is the joy, and it's the action of you you create, or you take nothing and you turn it into something. You take nothing, you make this product, you make this service, you do whatever it is you do. Like you said before, Colin, it was that you draw, you sing, you build, you whatever it is. And to me, that action is innately human. It's that spontaneous aha moment where you say, I see an opportunity that other people don't see. I'm going to go for it. There's just something exhilarating about that. And it's something where it's an adrenaline rush. I'm completely addicted to it. I'm completely addicted to the adrenaline rush of creation, that spontaneous point in time where you're like, yep, I know what I'm going to do next, and we're going to build this. And then it appears. And it's just, there's nothing like it. Like I look at what my team does in my business, and have each of them have their own unique spark of creativity as well. And my role as the entrepreneur is to unleash that inside, is so they can go ahead and just fire like you wouldn't believe. And I look at them, they're like beacons of light in the darkness, that spark of creativity. And I get excited by that, Colin. I really do. I find it amazing. That's probably my biggest high. Look at the numbers and everything like that. And you said before, the fact that someone goes and buys your product or service is a validation that it has value. And it's so true. I look at my P&L and I view it like the score in a game. I really do. I look at it, I go, oh, okay, so how's the game going this month? And I sit down with my accountant and the CFO and stuff. And I look at the numbers and then look at the balance sheet and the cash flow and all that sort of stuff. We go through it. And I really look at it in sense of a game. And I look at the strategy and the tactics we're going to use and everything. And it's the best. So what helps me level the roller coaster out is to realize something else, Colin, which is there will be highs and there will be lows. It's how we respond to them. Will we become arrogant in highs? Will we become depressed in the lows? Or will we try to go along and have a level demeanor as we deal with both of them? And to me, that's what it really means to be an entrepreneur, is you bring a sense of calm to your team. Like I had a situation just the other day where different members of my team were panicking, all these different things, all that sort of stuff, and going around, happening. Well, I just calmly said, let's work the problem. And we worked the problem. In the next few hours, everything was solved. But from panic to calm. And as entrepreneurs, we can choose to panic with our team or lead our team in panic, or we can bring a sense of calm and work the problem. And I love doing what we do, Colin. And one of my favorite times each week is right now. is in the Complete Entrepreneur. When we look at what it means to lead that life of an entrepreneur, and 9 times out of 10, the reason why businesses fail is not because of a business collapse, it's because of a personal collapse. The entrepreneur gets burnt out. The entrepreneur destroys all of their personal relationships and their zeal to be able to go after their business. And in the end, that completely destroys them at the inside, which impacts their business. There's all these different things of leading the life of an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is under so much stress because they don't know how to handle the stress. They just implode internally. Yeah, there's all these different things, and it comes down to who are you? Out of all the things you could do in your life that will teach you about who you are, being an entrepreneur is probably the real fire, the fire test. Who are you? And the ultimate, and I've said this on this show a number of times, the ultimate adventure in life for me is discovering who I am. That's the ultimate adventure. And the place I can discover that the most is being an entrepreneur. It's how do I deal with the highs? How do I deal with the lows? How do I go along and ride the roller coaster? How do I make better, wiser decisions? All those sort of things are what drives me onwards, Colin.
Exactly. All right, good way to end it, Michael. We separated shorter show today, so we'll knock down.
On an airplane. Yeah. But anyway, it's been great having you all here. I just need to finish up with one
Yeah,
thing.
thank you for doing this, by the way. I think we all appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. I learned a lot from you.
I've learned a lot from you as well, Colin, that's for sure. And from you in the audience. For those of you in the audience who are listening to this on podcast, we love hearing from you. And one of the best ways you can hear from us is go to startup.club and sign up for the newsletter. You'll get one newsletter once a month, and you'll be notified of really special events and stuff like that, special guest speakers and things. And there's a great show that Colin runs with Michelle Van Tilburg each week as well. So take a look at that. But you won't hear about anything unless you go to startup.club and sign up for the newsletter. No one's going to spam you. I personally have signed up. And so I haven't received spams or anything like that. I've just received amazing content that helps me on my journey as an entrepreneur, which I really appreciated. The other thing is, Colin's written a book, I've mentioned it a few times on the show, called Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. If you haven't bought it, then do yourself a favor and invest in your own entrepreneurial acumen. Go and buy the book. Go to Amazon. It's won 40 awards. Is it number one this week on Amazon, Colin?
Not this week, but it looks like it might be number one later in the month because we were selected by a company that is going to feature it. So we'll see. And Forbes Entrepreneur Magazine is going to feature it next month as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. You've got to get that. It's got a whole series of workbooks as well. Go and get it. Trust me, Colin's not making a whole lot of money from this. He's got many other things he can be doing, but he believes in sewing back into the entrepreneurial community. And we don't earn anything from the show. We never have for the last 4 years. I think we've been doing it. The reason why we do it is for you and the audience, you and the podcast, is to share some of our experiences with you to help you in your business. Anyway, we're going to close the room right now. Wish you all the best in your business this coming week. I look forward to seeing you next week on The Complete Entrepreneur at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See you there.